First to the Emirates, and the standout tie from the FA Cup third round didn't disappoint as Arsenal and Manchester United produced a thriller. United triumphed on penalties despite playing an hour with 10 men. Arsenal once again were made to pay for wayward finishing, and their problems were compounded by Gabriel Jesus going off with a serious-looking injury.
Managed to score, and then I felt that in that moment we were able to improve with the ball, but with the sent-off was really hard on us. And then we suffered altogether, defending very well with some opportunities from Arsenal. The players were really tired, but I felt since the first minute that today was our day. And I felt also a connection with our fans, our staff. It was a very good day for us in that aspect. We need to improve the way we play football.
Well, for United, there were redemption stories for Joshua Zirkzee and Altay Bayındır. Zirkzee scored the winning penalty after only 2 weeks ago. He was substituted in the first half against Newcastle and jeered by United fans. While Bayındır's poor punch led to Arsenal's goal, he then made up for it with 2 penalty saves.
Your life as a footballer has cycles and moments, and sometimes in 1 week your life can change. And you can see Altay. Against Tottenham, everybody was pointing the finger for Altay, and I understand that. And today, he was our hero also. Joshua, a few weeks ago, had a small problem with our fans, and today, every time he's going on the pitch, you feel that the support from the fans, and then he has the last penalty. So the life is like that, and you have to continue humble, to work every day. Your time will come, and so it's really important for them, not just for them, but for his teammates.
OK, we'll look at the Arsenal point of view in a few minutes on the football show, but to the victor, the spoils. Let's turn our attention to Manchester United. So down to 10, but still a draw after 120 minutes. Following on from that draw with Liverpool, we said they needed to back it up. Did they do just that? Are we really seeing improvements here?
Yeah, I think that's what we said. It was great doing it against Liverpool. Can they then do it against Arsenal? Can they continue to keep doing it? And I think what we saw was a real strong defensive display. I thought they were very well organised off the ball. The shape was very good. I thought they worked really hard and, made it difficult for Arsenal. I suppose that helps with time on the training ground. They've had that period where Amorim can work with his players and work on the shape, so that's bound to help. I think also maybe having a consistent line-up in terms of not chopping and changing. We saw a lot of players in and players out. We were saying, was he sort of trialling players, or was that due to the amount of games that they had and he had to keep changing? So the fact that now you could probably name 9 or 10 out of his starting 11 that he wants. I'm not saying that's going to be his starting 11 moving forward. I think he certainly will bring in players that he wants to fit into that system. But at the moment, the players that he feels are right at this moment in time, you could probably say. So I think that helps with connections then, doesn't it? So, yeah, I think you've got to praise how strong they were defensively. I think the thing is now moving forward, I think they're playing Southampton next. What are they going to be like in an attacking sense? So if they've got to then take the game to teams, how are they going to be then? I suppose that's the next question. But from a defensive perspective, and obviously the result, the fact that they're into the next round, I think it's certainly positives to take.
Yeah. Let's talk about Altay Bayındır, shall we? And his post-match interview would have been music to Amorim's ears, because effectively what he was saying is, yeah, I don't play very much, but this is Manchester United. You have to be ready when you're called upon. He made that key penalty save in normal time. Considering how little he has played, how impressed was he?
Yeah, I think, like he says, though, you've always got to be prepared and you've got to train properly, be ready for those situations. So there's an element of luck at times with a penalty save as well, but then there's the other side of it where there is your homework, where you look at what the player who's taken the penalty does and what his record is. And Odegaard had a decent enough record. I think he scored 3 out of 3 before that penalty yesterday. So, it's a really good save from him. I think there's been sections of maybe Manchester United fans who've wanted to see a little bit more of him. I know he'd made a mistake previously the last time he played, but then when you've got that consistent run of games, you can showcase what you can do in more long term. So I think it's something that maybe Amorim will look at a little bit more closely, because I think Onana's been at fault for a lot in recent weeks and hasn't covered himself in too much glory.
Yeah. What about Joshua Zirkzee? When he stood up to take that final penalty, I don't know what he was thinking, but I was looking between my fingers considering what had gone before. We've seen him struggle since joining United. How much could this be a turning point? How much does he need this?
Yeah, I hope so. I was the same as you, and I think unless you're an Arsenal fan, just as a football fan, you just wanted him to do well. You wanted him to score that, because of what had happened previously in the Newcastle game, where he was took off. Was it 33 minutes? I think he was took off, and then what had happened with a section of the fans. So you just wanted him to be successful. I actually thought he did well when he come on. He held the ball up well. He linked play. He worked hard off the ball, and yeah, it's a big moment, isn't it? When all of that's happened, it shows, I suppose, the character of the player, and it just shows how football can change so quickly. You know, 1 week you're coming off, and it wasn't just him. I think obviously Amorim needed to change things because of what was happening in that Newcastle game, because of how they were getting overrun in the midfield area. But you have to then go, okay, that's happened to me. How do I respond from that? And you know, he certainly responded in the right way. It's now he's the hero, isn't he, scoring the winning penalty?
Stephen. You said for so long that United lacked an identity. When Ten Hag you were saying, I really don't know what this is. Are we starting to see that? And if so, what are we seeing that indicates that?
Yeah, I think we are seeing a little bit of an identity. I don't still think it's one that Manchester United fan. I know a lot of Manchester United fans have been buoyed by the last couple of results, and the result against Liverpool and the result yesterday. Sue touched on it earlier. I spoke about this the other day, about the system and how difficult it is to play in. I think the players are starting to adapt to that system, but more so in a defensive way. When you try and flip that and then go to an attacking sense, it's very easy when you play three at the back and you play wing backs to drop back into a deep shape, and you can invite pressure onto you, because it should be difficult to break that team down. And I think that's what we've seen in Manchester United, especially yesterday against Arsenal, when they do go down to 10 men and they find it difficult to get up the pitch. But it's what's happening at the top end of the pitch. Where's the creativity? What's the ideas going forward? So I know he doesn't have the players yet to perhaps play out the system that he wants to bring in, which is that the 3-4-3 system. But I'm still not convinced by it. I'm still going to put my neck on the line and say I don't like the system, and I'm talking about that from a point of view of playing within that system. And I know I've taken a lot of criticism online and social media about this, but there's still an element where I think if you want to win things in this system, and that is ultimately what Manchester United are trying to get back to, is back to competing for the Premier League, from back to competing for trophies, is that's where you're going to be questioned. And people will come at me again and go, yeah, but Bayer Leverkusen did it. It's not the Premier League. It's not as competitive. Look what happened when they came to Anfield this season. They got battered 4-0 because of the system. Arne Slot found faults within the system. And then United fans will say, yeah, but they didn't find those faults in United when they came to Anfield. It's a different game. It's a derby. It's not this normal type of game that you play in, week out. There's so much emotion and so much tension in them games, is that decision making isn't quite at its best. So listen, the last couple of games, United fans will be buoyant. They'll be delighted with what they've seen, but let's judge them at the end of the season and where they end up.
He didn't like playing in a back three, did he?
Hated it.
He absolutely loathed it, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think I got that after all these years. OK, Sue. I mean, winning an FA Cup third round tie is lovely.
Yeah.
Getting a draw at Anfield, kind of OK.
Yeah.
But they are 13th in the table. They're closer to Ipswich in the bottom three than they are, points-wise, to Chelsea in the top four.
Yeah.
So what is success? What would be considered OK for Amorim between now and May?
I suppose it's to see progression, isn't it? It's to see this team develop into the team that Manchester United fans want to see, something that they can maybe believe in and go, OK, this is how we're going to play, this is our identity, which is something that we we said for a long period of time with Manchester United, we couldn't see how they were moving forward and what the identity was. You can straight away, you know exactly what they're trying to do. So I suppose to see progression in that, maybe the players that they bring in to fit into that system. And yeah, it's just building. So at the moment, we're seeing real solid defensive foundations. So they're building on that. Then it's, okay, what can we see from them in an attacking sense? Because at the moment, we are still seeing just those moments of brilliance. You know, the Bruno Fernandes finish, the breakaway, whether it's Ahmad or... So that's what we were saying previously. We were saying, well, they've got moments in an attacking sense, but can we see that consistently? So I think that's probably what Manchester United fans want to see. But I also want to praise, I think, Harry Maguire. I think he's done brilliant. You know, to come into that back three, I think it suits him really well.
He loves it.
He does. He does.
He loves it, but you can tell, can't
you?
Yeah, and his performances of
De Ligt as well, that clearance.
Absolutely, and that's what you're seeing. So you're seeing that. Let's see the attacking sense. So yeah, if they could go and be successful in a cup and just see the progression, I think Manchester United fans will see that as maybe a building season for next year.
I think this is a really difficult in the fact of when you say what do Manchester United fans expect or what's acceptable, is all we keep on hearing is, and this is from United fans as well, we don't have the players to play the system. So if you don't have the players to play the system, where do you expect United to finish in the league? Then how do you expect to see United progressing as a team if they don't have the players to play within the system? It's very difficult, isn't it? And then you're going, well, we'll judge them next year when they bring the players in. That's when you effectively should be judging him, because it's very difficult to come in halfway through a season if he doesn't have the players to play the system that he wants to play. Now, if he comes in and says, I don't care about the players, it's just about improvements in the system and making sure things get better, they will start to climb the table, but he's going to get rid of quite a lot of these players, apparently. So I'm a little bit torn as to how you judge where they're at as a football club.
Yeah.
Effectively, you're saying, it doesn't matter what happens this year. It's all about next year. Then judge me next year when I get my signings in. But then there'll always be, but judge me in the next transfer window and the one after that, because I'm still adding to this.
Yeah.
And that's what people are always going to say.
And the other thing is, do Manchester United then really invest in that system and bring players in to play in that system to then go, oh, actually, that hasn't worked? That's another concern, I suppose, for Manchester United, because we saw what happened with Ten Hag, where Ten Hag was going to go, and they then went, oh no, we want you to stay, we'll give you all this money. So again, he's brought in the players that he wants that now Amorim doesn't really want. So it's... Yeah.
What I gathered from that is Stephen is arguing, bin off the back three and go back four. You're not playing anymore, is that?
No, I'm okay.
Yeah. All right. As for Arsenal, Mikel Arteta felt his side didn't get what they deserved.
Incredible how you don't win the game. That's basically, to sum up, the dominance, the superiority in relation to your opposition, and everything that we did to try to win the game. And that's it. That we didn't deserve. We didn't get what we deserved, clearly. But there is an element that is about putting the ball in the back of the net. They did it once, and with the amount of situations, chances, penalties that we had, we didn't. And we go home extremely sad, but I cannot be prouder of my players on the team, individual, collectively, what they produce. Like on Wednesday against Newcastle, against two top teams, it is incredible. But we haven't got rewarded, and that's the downside to it.
Arsenal had a number of chances. Stephen, the big debate, ifs and buts and whatever. But would this game have gone to extra time and penalties if they had an out-and-out goal scorer in their team?
Well, they wouldn't have if they had a decent penalty taker as well. I mean, if Odegaard scores the penalty, we're not even discussing that now, because Arsenal probably go on to win the game and maybe go on and extend the lead, because United then have to come out of the shape and it changes the context of the game. Mikel Arteta will always have this argument where he wants more goals from other players, and that's been his argument for a long time now, and not being overly heavily reliant on one single player, because his argument would be then is, if that player gets injured, where does that leave us as a team? We're so reliant on one player that where them goals going to be spread out elsewhere. So I get both sides to it. I do think if you are going to be a team that competes for both the Champions League and the Premier League, I think you do need a goal scorer within your team that is going to get you the goals to turn games like that single-handedly or given an opportunity. So the hard thing is that Arsenal have invested an awful lot of money over the last few years within the squad. And I think he's almost said it, is that he's not sure how much they've got to spend or whether there is money to spend in January. But his hands are very tied at the moment with the injuries that they've got.
Yeah, let's talk about Kai Havertz, shall we? I don't think any player has ever gone out there, well, correct me if I'm wrong, and thought, I know what I'll do, I'll miss some today. He didn't do what he did on purpose, and yet I'm reading this morning about social media abuse being quite disgusting towards him and his wife. He did miss a number of chances. The problem is he's not a centre forward, is he? He's never been a centre forward, and yet you're asking him to play there. So should he be doing better, or is this the fact that he is simply a player who's stepping up and going, I'll play there if you need me to?
Well, he'll know that he's a quality player. He'll know that he should have done better with the opportunities that he's had. You know, I think as players, that's the first thing you do, isn't it? You look at yourself and you go, right, how could I have done better that opportunity against Newcastle, my opportunities yesterday against Manchester United? So he'll be, you know, reflecting, I'm sure, on that. But yeah, he is a player that's playing out of position. Yes, he can play there. We know that. We know that the qualities that he's got. But he isn't an out-and-out striker. But that, again, depends how Mikel Arteta wants to play. And we know that he wants to play where goals come from everywhere. And unfortunately, a lot of the chances have fell to Havertz recently, and you know, he's not been able to take those chances. So that debate is always going to be there, isn't it? Do Arsenal need an out-and-out striker? I think when you look at them, it would obviously give them another dimension, wouldn't it, to have that?
Yeah.
But it just depends on how they want to play and how Mikel Arteta wants to play. But they certainly, I think, need reinforcements in that attacking area. The injury to Saka, Jesus, again, we don't know what's happened with him, but you feel that they just need that, I suppose, just boosting that forward line, because maybe the players haven't quite hit the form that we know they can.
It's interesting, though, because you just said there that he's playing Havertz and he's probably not in his position, but Arteta does see him in that position, doesn't he? So there's got to be an element where you go, he isn't a natural striker, so he is going to miss opportunities because he doesn't have that killer instinct in front of goal. That's not him. He's a different type of player, but he knew that when he brought him into the club. He was never going to be a 30-goal-a-season man, was he? That was never what you were buying when you bought him into the club. He's not going to be that player who plays off the shoulder. I think that the frustrating thing with Havertz is that the opportunities that he misses yesterday, and that he misses quite a lot in all fairness, is that he gets in great positions. But the biggest thing that top strikers have is they have composure in front of goal, and between their ears there's that element of being able to calm themselves down and relax themselves and give them more time in the head when they can see perhaps what a defender's going to do or what a goalkeeper will do, is that they can slow the game down in the head. He hasn't got that ability to do that, but we almost knew that, and probably Mikel Arteta did. Whether he thought he could coach that, then that might be a different side of it, but all strikers that I've played with just have a natural ability to know where to be, but also have that killer instinct to finish those chances. Yeah,
Sue mentioned Gabriel Jesus. Looks like it's a serious injury. That's what Arteta said afterwards. Right, is it a statement of where Arsenal think they're at, whether they go into the market then this January? If they think they've got a sniff of the title, they're now without Saka, without Jesus, Waneri as well. They're looking there. A big money buy could be the difference.
Yeah, and it's the unknown, isn't it? It could be the difference, but it could be that they're still so light in there. And that's the issue you do get. What are the options in those forward areas? I mean, if you're bringing someone in, it's going to have to be a top quality striker. Who's going to allow Arsenal to buy a top quality striker off them within the Premier League? Who's going to release one in Europe out of the top teams in the Champions League? Are they going to allow a top striker to go to Arsenal? I'm not so sure that would happen. Why would you strengthen an opposition team? It's a very difficult market. We know that in January.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about Arsenal, and this is the both of you, out of the FA Cup, behind in the EFL Cup. They're trying to chase down Liverpool in the Premier League. Champions League, they're sitting okay for qualifying to the next phase. But this is a pivotal moment for them. It could go one of either ways here. And if they end up empty-handed again in a season where City have dropped off the pace and it looked like their ideal opportunity to go and take the title. What would that mean?
Well, I think you look at how close they come to Manchester City finishing second. I thought this year would have been their season with obviously Jurgen Klopp leaving. I wondered what would happen with Liverpool. Would this be the chance for Arsenal to actually go and get that? And Liverpool have been brilliant and blown everybody away. So I think all Arsenal can do is, yes, they're out of the FA Cup, but they've still got an opportunity in the Carabao Cup. I know it's going to be difficult for them, but they're still in that. Obviously, the Champions League, they'll still keep fighting on the Premier League front. So it's just a case of keeping going. They've been unfortunate with the injuries that they've had, the missing Ødegaard for a period of time, now missing Saka, two of their key players in an attacking sense. So they'll be hoping that these players can come back fit and really push on for the next part of the season.
Yeah, I don't care how good a team you are. If you lose Saka, Ødegaard for long periods of time, but I think there's also been an element where Declan Rice has struggled. I think a lot of players have struggled, not just at Arsenal, but throughout the leagues where they've come back from the Euros and they found life really difficult to get back up to steam. And then it's been a little bit too late for them. And I think we're seeing that with a lot of the Arsenal players, is that they found it really difficult to find the form again. It has been a really tough season for them through injuries, but a lot of clubs will look at it and say, yeah, well, we've been struck ourselves and we found life difficult, but especially when it's Ødegaard and Saka, they're their key players.
Yeah.
Right, we'll be hearing from Arne Slot later this morning, but what about Manchester United? We're still waiting for news on Marcus Rashford, but last night, Ruben Amorim said he wasn't sure if the forward had played his last game for the club or not.
Marcus Rashford obviously wasn't part of the squad today. Is it likely he's played his last game for Manchester United?
I don't know. We'll see. He's a player for Manchester United. We'll see. He have to work. He have to represent his club, and he loves his club. But I have to make choices. Already spoke about how I make the choices. So it is what it is. So let's continue. Let's see the next game. And like I said, I have to make a selection.
So Ruben Amorim himself unsure, Flex, whether Marcus Rashford has played his last game. What's your gut feeling? What's the feeling amongst the fans? Do you think you're going to see Rashford in a Man United shirt again?
Yeah, in my opinion, I don't think we will. Not this season. You can never say never in the future. You may secure a loan and it might not go well, and all of a sudden things change in football very, very quickly, even though that's unlikely in my opinion. But I think for the rest of this season, I think he'll secure a loan move away from Man United. And Ruben Amorim saying, I'm not sure, I don't know. Again, I think that's down to the business of football, because as I've said many times, and many people talking about Rashford's potential departure from Man United have said, it's a difficult deal to do economically. You're looking for clubs across Europe to subsidise substantial wages of the best part of his £300,000 a week, which is not easy. Not many clubs can do that in January across Europe. And with Saudi not being an option for him, that needs to be considered and limits the amount of destinations he could possibly land at. But do I think he'll secure a move somewhere in this window? I think he will. But you never know in football as well. It's also possible that the economical climate didn't really allow for it to happen and he couldn't really secure a move, which would leave a bigger problem for Manchester United. Then he would have to be reintegrated into the squad, in my opinion. But I think he'll get a move in January.
Well, Manny, the early noises are probably suggesting that it's going to be Italy if he goes anywhere. AC Milan interested. There has been some other interest from Italian clubs, including Como, which would be very interesting, if they came in and said, we're going to pay for all of Marcus Rashford's wages, because no one else has said that so far. Is it a guarantee, though, that he's going to go to Italy? Can you see a Premier League club or two coming in for him and throwing a spanner in the works?
I think the thing is, you never know. We've seen it recently happen with Sancho. We've seen it happen with Sterling. So it might not be off the cards. Obviously, Rashford is a big Manchester United fan, growing up like that boyhood club. So would he want to go to maybe like an Arsenal? We're here in West Ham. I don't know, but I think there is a possibility there. It's not out of the question. But like Flex said, it's up to the financial side of things as well. Will the Man United hierarchy want him to go to a rival? or if the finances are right, can we go?
That Arsenal one's really interesting, though.
Yeah.
With what's happened to Jesus.
You imagine Sterling and Rashford at Arsenal on loan.
Last minute, dying hours of transfer deadline day. Rashford, do you want to get here? 6 months loan, no obligation. I tell you what, I wouldn't 100% discount her, but I'd just, on a personal, I'd just like to think that Rashford would just want to clean break, get out of the Premier League.
That would give us a lot to talk about. Rashford at Arsenal. Right, so if he does go, then they have to think about replacements, don't they, Man United? PSG forward Randall Kolo Muani remains a player of interest to Man U, although Sky in Italy are reporting that Juve think they are in pole position and AC Milan are also interested. So the Italian clubs are really active at the moment, early in this window. He sounds like he would be tough to get because of all that competition. But is he someone who could improve their goal threat?
Yeah, not forgetting the competition actually from Tottenham potentially as well. They're looking for someone who can strengthen their front three, and he's definitely someone, Kolo Muani, who can play across the front three positions, help Dominic Solanke out a little bit. But yeah, from a Manchester United point of view, I think they've been interested in him for a long time, actually. Back when they got Rasmus Højlund in, they were interested in Kolo Muani there. So clearly there's been a long time admiration from the club for him. He scored 2 goals in 10 games so far in Ligue 1 this season. Mind you, most of them have been largely as a substitute. He's averaged around 0.67 goals and assists per 90 minutes, which isn't too bad when you consider that he's coming off the bench more often than not. But I think more than anything, he can offer speed and strength on the ball and leave defenders sort of trailing behind him. That's the idea. So yeah, he could be a good fit for Manchester United. Whether or not he will provide all of the goals they're looking for, I'm not so sure. Plus, as I say, plenty of interest out there between Tottenham, AC Milan as well, and Juventus,
Possibly
of course.
more will come in, you never know.
Yeah.
I should just say, another bit of news from Manchester United is that the 17-year-old left wing-back Diego Leon is in Manchester for a medical ahead of completing his move from Cerro Porteño, a young Paraguayan player. It's expected that he will then go back to Paraguay, join United in the summer, so probably one for 2-3 years' time. The Leicester City are actually the most active club at the moment. Let's quickly update you on the various situations that they have at the moment. Abdul Kadir Kusanov wasn't in Lens' matchday squad yesterday after they accepted an offer worth £33.5 million plus bonuses. The club are also, we've been telling you, working on a deal to sign Eintracht Frankfurt's Omar Marmoush. That could be one of the big deals of January. And they are holding talks with Palmeiras for the defender Vitor Reis. So they are active, Kwaku. If they get all three, does that solve a lot of their problems, do you think?
Hayes is one for the future. In terms of players that can come in now and affect it, Marmoush is the one we're looking at. If you look at his statistics at Frankfurt, he's a player that gives you output in terms of goals and assists. It's interesting, though, because seeing Julian Alvarez score the winner for Atletico Madrid yesterday against Osasuna, you wonder, despite the fact that they recouped such a big fee for a player that was valuable to them, could they not do his services right now? You look at the position that Marmoush takes up, primarily down the middle, but can also play off the left as well. And so I think he's a player that can come in and affect things straight away for Man City. If you look at Kusanov, though, having talked to Kev Hatra last week, he says he's a very good player. He's young, he's imposing, but in terms of the ball at his feet, he still needs to do some work. So I don't know whether he comes
That surprised me, I must say, when I heard that.
It was interesting because we expect Man City to go and rebuild in this January window to bring in players to make an effect this season. But Kusanov is a player that might need a bit of time. And if you look at Man City signings under Pep, they do take a bit of time. Think about Jack Grealish, took a season to settle in. Even players like Gundogan, it took a while to settle in. So it's an interesting window for Man City. But I'm looking at Marmoush as a player that a lot of teams have been looking at. He's very talented. He's good on the ball. He can bring that spark that Man City have been missing, and also help Haaland. He's their only goal getter, really. And Man City have been struggling in that department. So in terms of this January window, I think Marmoush is the one. But if you look at a team historically, your team, Manchester United Flex, when they brought in Evra and Vidic in that January 2006 window, nobody expected them to come in and make a difference straight away.
They initially struggled as well.
But long term, they were a huge part of that rebuild. You were in a three-year drought in terms of winning the Premier League title, and they came and changed the face of the club. So hopefully for Man City, these players can come and do that. Whether it's this season remains to be seen.
Well, look, these three might all be very good signings. We've got two young centre-backs, Marmoush, who can offer going forward in a lot of different positions. None of these players, though, Molly, are a defensive midfielder. Is that not the position, the Rodri replacement, that needs sorting out first?
Yeah, This is what baffles me, to be honest with you. How can City be the most active club, yet not have anyone linked to them that is a central midfielder, a defensive midfielder? I'm really surprised at that, particularly given they rarely do business in the January window as well. To be linked with 3 is something, but none of them to be a replacement for Rodri, when clearly there's a glaring hole there in the squad, which is so integral to the way that Pep Guardiola plays. I'm baffled by that, because Rodri is, without doubt, the biggest miss for City this season.
And they have been active, haven't they? So if they do sign these 3 players, you're looking at, 120, 130 million combined.
Yeah.
They never do this in January in Manchester City. Does this highlight how concerned they are about not finishing in the top 4?
Absolutely. It shows their intent and their sort of attention to the position that they're in, and that they're not happy with it. It's as simple as that. And I think they have tried an awful lot of different solutions and internal solutions of different ways of solving the problems that they have, and they haven't quite managed to do it yet and click into gear. OK, the last couple of games, they look like they could get a little bit of calm there. But then also, I think Pep's looking at it in terms of, can I freshen things up and give an extra boost for the next part of the season? Because Manchester City, if they don't get going, they might not even make the top 4. Which, you look at what Newcastle are doing, Aston Villa are there or thereabouts as well. Chelsea are not going away anytime soon. Forest are absolutely there. A couple more wins for them, and you're looking at a title race for them until it isn't anymore. And that's how seriously you have to take this. The Premier League is super competitive, and I think for a team who's just won 4 on the bounce, to sort of look at it and say, we have no divine right to just find solutions here. We need to go into the market. So I think it shows strong intent from Pep Guardiola that he's tried a few solutions in-house. It hasn't worked. And to go and get, like, say, someone like the player of Omar Mamouche's quality in this January transfer window shows real intent from Manchester City. And they're not just thinking that they can just get players of old that would just bounce back. Oh, don't worry, Rod will be back. No, he's out for a long time. Don't worry, Kevin De Bruyne will come back and sort. No, it's not happening at the moment. Kevin De Bruyne has had his injury time out as well. So really, really struggling.
And you've mentioned, the last 4 seasons in particular, but also players like Kevin De Bruyne. We've already talked about Kyle Walker. We were looking at it last week. The last 4 seasons, the maximum amount they've spent, Manchester City, in a season, in a January transfer window, is 14.5 million. Now, you're talking 3 players that they're rumoured to be, linked with at the moment. Over 100 million, absolutely. Could that even stretch to more if they're looking for a central midfielder as well? And the point that we've already made about Kyle Walker, if he leaves, if Kevin De Bruyne is out of contract, this is the start of a complete new Manchester City under Pep Guardiola, where Champions League is so important.
It's needed.
Could be the start of the big refresh, couldn't it?
Absolutely.
Really needed.
We'll be busy the whole of January. This is the part I wasn't really looking forward to. Unfortunately, we've got to reflect slightly on the game yesterday at the Emirates. Dramatic
I'm keeping
game.
you apart, you two. I'm keeping you apart.
You don't have to, but if you want to.
Well, we might as well. Yeah, come on. We have to. Right, Arsenal squandered several big chances yesterday, didn't they, as they were knocked out of the FA Cup by Manchester United. This is what Mikel Arteta had to say about potentially signing a striker this month.
We miss from various ways, from different players, and I understand, guys, but I cannot love our players more, and I very much focus in the ones that we have to perform at the highest level. That's it. The rest is not in our hands, in my hands.
OK, well, as we saw yesterday, Kai Havertz is dreadfully out of form. He's missed 3 big chances now in the last 2 games, plus, of course, missed the penalty in the shootout. The Jesus injury, we don't know, but it doesn't look great, does it? The way he came off, hopefully it's not a serious knee injury, but it could well be. When you have those 2 things at the same time, do you think that will be the thing that pushes Arsenal finally into the market for a forward?
Yeah, it should do. But before those 2 things happen, even before the Bukayo Saka injury, if you asked Arsenal fans, what do you need to do to strengthen? What do you need to do to go again and try and win this Premier League title for the first time in 21 years? They would all universally tell you they need a striker. And I know Kai Havertz is going through poor form right now, but it's not time to denigrate him. He is not a striker. He was originally brought in to be a number 8. And then things happened and he ended up playing up front for them, and he did a decent enough job. But if you're relying on Kai Havertz to get you 20 Premier League goals, then you need to look in another place, because he is not that. He didn't show that at Chelsea, didn't even show that at Bayer Leverkusen before that. He is a player that occupies similar positions to Martin Odegaard, and he can go and get you goals, but that's not his primary focus. So Arsenal do need to bring in a striker. They needed that in the summer, and now there is a post-mortem on Arsenal summer. If you look at the players they brought in, Mikel Moreno, did they bring in the wrong Sociedad midfielder? He's a good player in his own right, but is he what Arsenal needed? You look at Raheem Sterling, who was good for Arsenal against Manchester United in the FA Cup, but is he the player that they need at this stage of his career? And then you look at Calafiori, who is injured at the moment, hasn't played enough football, and you look at defence in terms of centre-backs, that's their strongest position, I would say, Arsenal. So I think that Arsenal do need to reinvest in the January transfer window, but how many times have you seen it in Premier League history, a team go and spend money in January to go and win a title? That business is normally done in the summer. And so Arsenal are now chasing, they're playing catch-up, but they're still a very good side on the face of it. They've still got very good players, and if they do make the right moves in this month, there's no reason why they can't push up to the positions that they want to in the Premier League. But right now, there's no doubt about it. Arsenal need the front.
Here's a question for you there, Flex, because Joby McAnuff, who's an Arsenal fan, said this on Sky Sports News yesterday. And I was listening to it and I thought, OK, that's an interesting view. He said, look, if Arsenal can't get Alexander Isak this January, and it's going to be very hard to get him, let's be honest, it's going to take a big, big bid. If Arsenal can't get him, they shouldn't get anyone. And they should just wait until the summer and then go all in for Isak. Do you think that's a viable option? But the problem is, if you do that, you're not kind of saying, well, we're going to write off the season.
Yeah, you're essentially. I think Arsenal fans deserve more than that. With the planning that should have been done, and the praise that the likes of Edu was getting before he's left the football club, alongside Arteta and other people who make the decisions at Arsenal, with the praise they were getting and adulation they were getting, this to me seems like poor planning. This has not been a problem that has just reared its head because of a couple of injuries. Like Kwaku said, Arsenal have been in need of this type of player for a while. So I think Arsenal fans would be, while I see where Joby's coming from in respect to wait for the one you want, but at the end of the day, they've had players like Trossard come into the football club in January to help give people a boost. And it worked in that moment, in that time. There's value out there in the market. Kvaratskhelia, I understand he might be going to PSG, etc., but it was available. Victor Osimhen, there's something that could be done. Vlahovic, who Arsenal were chasing only a couple of years ago.
Kvaratskhelia, the kind of player Arsenal should be looking at?
I don't see why not. A top level attacker, but right now, that would give them a boost in terms of the player that he is. But it's unrealistic. They just have to get a forward, a striker. They need somebody who is going to, they're going to be able to bank on hitting the net more times than not, Molly. And it's been really, really difficult for them. But Arsenal fans won't buy this because at the end of the day, this has been something they've needed for a while.
Yeah, and I think Arteta's made it quite clear, hasn't he, in his latest press conferences as well, that he is looking for the one. So similarly aligned, actually, with what Joby McAnuff is saying, he wants the striker. And we all know how difficult it is to find the striker that you want. That is going to be so difficult for them. I think Kvaratskhelia, I'm going to get this right.
Well done.
Kvaratskhelia would have been absolutely... Between Liverpool and Arsenal, I would have expected them to tussle between themselves for him, to be honest. But it looks like he's going to PSG, as you say. But the Jesus injury yesterday just further emphasised that need for a striker. As you say, it's been lingering over them for seasons now. And Kai Havertz just quite clearly isn't hitting those heights. But Bukayo Saka being out, they're lacking that creativity there with him missing. How Kai Havertz can be Arsenal's top Premier League scorer with 7 goals is staggering, really. It's just the most glaringly obvious problem Arsenal have.
We're going to talk more about Kvaratskhelia later in the show, actually, with regards to Liverpool. And by the way, I think we're all looking for the one, aren't we?
Yeah.
It's not just us. Yeah. We're all looking for the one. OK.
If that makes you feel better, then yeah, we are.
Yeah, it does, actually.